Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Neva Alexander, and I guess we are live. We are live. Oh man, how are you? How have it been? For those that are listening in, you know, here in New York today, it is hot. It is warm. And yeah, we're trying to keep cool and calm. We don't complain because we don't usually get this kind of temperature. But today, I have a lovely powerhouse for you guys. I bring individuals that can share impact or, just keep you alive. So today, I have. Man, she's going to introduce herself because I always say to you guys that individuals introduce themselves better than I do, and I don't like to trip on words or their title or, I like to give them the respect that is due. But we have Mrs. Michelle Tulloch Neal, and she is, you're going to say who you are. All right, bring it in, Michelle.
I
Thank you so much for being here. Let me know how you be preferred to be called, because I don't want to be called and you be like, lady, want to give you your respect. So who are you?
All right. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be here on your podcast. It's actually 94 degrees in Philadelphia at this time. Aha. And as you said, my name is Michelle Tullanil. I am the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council Northeast USA representative. Got that?
Yes. Yeah, listen, you make it seem so small, like your title is. No, let the people know what you do because you do a lot. And sometimes we just oversee, okay, it's a title, but she has a huge responsibility within the area. So, go ahead, share with them.
Okay, will do. So for one thing, Jamaica has a situation where it has various mechanisms in place for us to stay connected with our island. And being a part of the global Jamaica diaspora for the Northeast is how we stay in contact with Jamaica. And it is a great thing because even though you have moved to the US, which you now call home, right? You still have your heart left in Jamaica. So, and you have your love for your people, your love for your country. So you want to find a way to maintain that connection. And so, being as a global Jamaica diaspora for the Northeast USA, you get that opportunity. So I'll attend meetings, talk about what is it that we want to see happen, what we need here, and bring also our ideas and experiences to what they are having in Jamaica so we can be excellent, which is my word that I constantly promote, is that we need to be united in excellence. Under my, for the lack of a better word, jurisdiction, there are 14 states. So you would find that anything that happens in New York, Delaware, New Jersey, Maine, or, whatever within the Northeast belt, I am usually either called upon or tell me about the situation. And it can be just anything. It could be um, somebody's child passed away. There could be some issues going on. There could be a gala. There could be a church service. Whatever it is that's happening in the 14 states, I'm usually called upon. But then I have a strong team because we also have what we call honorary counsel Christopher Chaplin. So I can, and I lean on him a lot because I might not know all the answers, but I can always call on him. And then we also have our CG, Alcion Wilson in New York that we can also call on. So we kind of work together as a team to support what we are trying to achieve while we call the United States home. So that's what I do in short, but it keeps you busy because there's 14 states. So I tend to do a lot of traveling. And as you may recall, 2 weeks ago, I had one of the first diaspora conference here in Philadelphia. And it's something that I would like to see happen biennially, but move around the entire Northeast. So, if you know your history, everything starts in Philadelphia. So how about the next 2 years, we go to Connecticut or we go to New York? Because we are not trying to compete with Jamaica Diaspora Conference. They have a biennial conference as well. So they have one in 2026. So I'm hoping when we go to that one in 2026, whatever comes out of that we want to build on this to keep people engaged so we know where we go from here. So that's what I do.
Awesome. And I'm glad you actually touched on the conference that you recently had because I was gonna, bring it up. So, I mean, one of the things I really please keep me on the list because somehow that missed me. And so I was not there, and I wish I was. You came out to my conference, the International Women's Conference that I do annually. I really do appreciate that. But I think sometimes I'm not in the loop, so keep me in the loop. But with the conference that you just had, like, who were some of the individuals in the room or in the space?
Okay, well, first, it was a success because I tried to listen to individuals. In December, when this idea came about, I sent out a survey asking diasporans, if we had a conference, what would you like to talk about? Right? And so from that, people say they wanted to talk about health, they want to talk about education, crime, commerce, and then immigration came towards the end because of strangers. And so when my team and I decided to plan the conference, we wanted to make sure we were answering the questions that individual had from the survey. So we started out the day with a mindset. In order for you to make changes in your life, it starts off with a mindset. And we had Dr. Shernet Grant talk about going from good to great. And that was just powerful. And then that was followed by real estate. Because we wanted to know, we are here, we're buying real estate, what is it that we need to know? And then if we are thinking of buying real estate in Jamaica, because some people plan on going back home, what do we need to know? And so for that panel, um, we had VM Group, and uh why am I we had Owen Eccles on,
Hmm.
and we had Giovanni Bennett. We had and I'm blanking on their names right now. I don't know why. And we
Yeah.
had VM. I'll get back to her name right now. So we had that group talking about real estate and
Mhm.
planning as we get older, right? And then that was followed by Dr. Carisha Byfield out of Philadelphia here in the hospital. And she's actually Jamaican as well. And she talked about healthcare in a broad sense. What is it that we need to do individually, collectively, to make sure we are in good health? But she was preparing us for Tuesday when I really had a panel. And then after that, we have something that I'm really proud of. It's the community policing. So I had police officers from Jamaica Constabulary Force in Jamaica and police officers in Philadelphia with activists having that conversation because technically Jamaica doesn't have all the answers, neither do the US. So we wanted to make sure we are talking to each other on what we can learn from each other. And then we end up the next day having talking about cancers and
So it was a 2 day
Dr.
event.
Three.
Three. Well. Excuse me. Okay. All right. So, I mean, it seems to be a lot really happening within that, those 3 days, right? So, because I do have a few more questions I do want to touch on with you, but with this conference, I mean, do you have a date as yet for next year?
Well,
Because I know you mentioned, you don't want to.
right. So the date, it's usually in June for Jamaica, and we are also gonna keep it in June here in the US, and have it around Caribbean
Got you.
American
Okay.
Heritage Month. So because there's so many Jamaicans that we want to highlight during that time, but also to
Hmm.
bring people in collectively to collaborate and to connect. So we don't have a date yet for 2027 because it's going to be in Jamaica in 2026.
Awesome, awesome. And I do want to interject at this time just to say on my end, I will be having the International Women's Leadership Retreat. That's going to be in Jamaica in September 22nd. So definitely, guys, you can reach out to me for that. Now, Michelle, let's continue. Question, on being the representative in the position that you hold, what are some ways that you have seen the diaspora truly move the needle in shaping Jamaica's development, whether, socially, economically, culturally? What do you see?
All right, so we definitely have moved the needle. What happens is that as David Mullings on Saturday when he was here as well, he talked about that we have more people outside of Jamaica than we have inside Jamaica at this point in time. And when he said that, he meant those that have migrated to the US, to England and Canada and other places. Because one thing about Jamaicans, we are everywhere, right? We are everywhere. And so what happens is that we give back to the country and to our people. And so remittance is actually one of the major um, financial part that Jamaica uses for their economy. So they rely a lot on that. Secondly, we are always visiting our island. So once we get there, we are also spending money. And Jamaica is where you want to be right now. So what you find is that everybody is visiting Jamaica. And um, tourism is also another part of what we do and we do well. As I said, real estate, that is a big thing. We are on the we are on the
Definitely.
stock exchange now. There's land to be purchased in Jamaica. People are buying land and people want to go back home or for investment purposes. So that actually brings us to Jamaica. People like myself, even before I became a diaspora rep, I was giving back to my school, Holy Childhood. So I would supply their track and field team. I'll offer laptops. And my church actually and I will be in Jamaica next month because we're doing some work in Spanish Town because last year somebody's house was burned down and my church came in and helped with that. So individually and collectively, we are doing so much. We also have what's called a health mission. There's always doctors and dentists going over to Jamaica to help with that. So the diaspora definitely have moved it and it have helped Jamaica be on the map like it is now.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm sorry to hear about, the incident that occurred, but I'm glad that you're actively, helping, right? So it's always great to hear there are people out there that have, sympathy and empathy to help out. So thank you for that. Now, my area is leadership. I'm a global leadership strategist, so I have to put in a leadership question to you. Leadership looks different in every culture, right? So even from United States to Jamaica, right? Leadership is different. So how would you describe your leadership style in the position that you're in? What's your leadership style? And in what ways do your Jamaican roots influence how you lead today? Okay,
Uh,
because you have your Jamaican roots and now you're in the United States in your role. Talk to me.
I am actually a more collaborative leader. I am the one who will go out, listen to everybody's story, and then from that, I'll make my decision. Also, I love to work with a team, especially now I'm really intrigued with our young people, right? They are just brilliant with fresh ideas. So I like to work, and they are the future. So why not bring them along? But I'm definitely collaborative. I want to hear from you. Also, I'm an advocate by my job, right? So I'm always looking for ways to help others. So you will see me listening. I'm not much of a talker, I am a doer. So, for example, I am very much interested in bridging the digital divide. So, when I listen, I want to hear how are we doing with these laptops in the urban schools and the rural schools. And so last year, what I did, I ended up giving laptops to 18 schools in Jamaica because I wanted to make sure,
Oh,
yeah, I'm bridging that digital divide. But then I also was talking to teachers and they talk about supplies, right? And they said, many times, just like teachers here in the US, you go in your pocket and you buy all the supplies. So when I was in Jamaica last month, not only did I do laptop this year, but I also gave book supplies while I was there to 19 schools. So those are the things that I continue to do. And that's how I lead. If there is an issue, I want to know how to solve it. And my pastor always said, when you walk in a room and if something affects you, then that is God telling you that you need to fix it. And so if I see something, and I will put my team together and I'll ask, what is the solution to this? I don't need to have a meeting about a meeting to meet about the meeting. Tell me how I'm going to solve this problem. And as I said, I am very collaborative and I am looking to help um, the unknown and to bring the masses along. So that's the type of leader I am. And I think that has to do with my Jamaican upbringing. We always work together. And I remember on Saturday, Darren Miller was also here, and he says, my, there's so many Jamaicans in one room. How is it going to be? And you know what? At the end of the day, it felt like family. And that's how it's supposed to be. We are all here. Nobody felt like they were more brilliant than the other, but people were just looking for an outlet. How can I use what I have known to bless other people and to educate us so we all are united in excellence?
Sounds great. But Michelle, you mentioned meeting to have a meeting to have, I just bust out laughing because don't you hate those? You have it sometimes in, corporations, they have so many meetings. Like your time is so engulfed with meetings. You're actually not doing what you're supposed to be doing. It's like they're paid. I mean, and it's nice to get paid just to have meetings, but what are you accomplishing, right? And as leaders, you really should be able to prioritize.
Mhm.
Give a look. Yes, we need to have meetings, but our time should not just be consumed with that. So yeah, thanks for saying that. So let's talk about engaging the next generation, right? Because we have young ones out there. We want that mindset, like, you need to help your country. And yes, we're specifically talking about Jamaica at this time because that's your location, but and that's who you are, your representative for. But, younger generations overall, need to, I'm just saying this, like, embrace their culture, know their roots, and, where their parents are from and stuff like that. Now, with engaging the next generation, many second and third generation, Jamaicans in the US, they feel distant from their heritage. And I was in one point in Florida and I had a career day. And it was Grace Kennedy at the time, not doing a promo for them, but they do something where they actually, you know, work. Like a work study kind of program where they bring, the second generation and stuff like to Jamaica to work. But then in that, when I, try to assist to promote it, I saw the disconnect with this, it's like they really don't care about their heritage or they don't really see the impact. So, what are some creative ways that you think you can, bridge the gap and, inspire more young people to get involved in the movement?
So when I was planning this conference, I was intentional about getting the youth. And I remember Honorary Chris Chaplin told me about this gentleman, a young guy. His name is Giovanni Bennett. And he was going to talk about estate planning and retirement. And I said to myself, he's so young. What does he know about estate planning and retirement? And he came on in one of my forums and he talked, and everybody was just glued to the information that he was willing to share. And to the point
Mhm.
where he was also in Delaware a couple weeks ago. And so when I thought about the planning and the real estate, I had to bring him on. And he talked as well. A person's name I was trying to remember was Natasha Service, from Victoria Mutual. She was also on that panel. And so they were able to talk about what they are doing and what you need to be doing, having a conversation with them. So what I did, I was intentional about it. Then I had an education section that was led by Sophia Stone out of Rhode Island. And what she did, which was remarkable, is that we had the young people talk about, okay, so I was born in Jamaica, but my parents migrated to the US, and how does that assimilation affected them? And then we had those that were born here from Jamaican parent and how they too were able to mesh. And that was an extremely interesting conversation because they talk about just what they say or how they were dressed and all of that. The young lady that from her parents, she was born here. She said she felt like an outsider. We had to tell her, no, 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 you're definitely one of us. So what I am trying to say here is that throughout my conference, every day you had young people. So we need to bring them in, no matter what the subject matter is. Let them be a part of it, but also let them feel so comfortable that I can attend a conference like this, a Jamaica Diaspora Conference Northeast, and I am not the only young person in the room, but also give them an opportunity to be at that table. And then as parents, we can also do what we can to tell them about our culture. I have found that young people who visit Jamaica during the summers of being migrated have more our connection and relationship to Jamaica. And
Mm-hmm.
what I also did was Jamani Dunn. He's actually from the University of the West Indies. He came here for the conference. And what they're trying to do is to bring Jamaicans, as they call it, to Jamaica for like a summer session, just to learn about the culture, what we are, and get immersed into the system. So stuff like little things like that we can do to bridge that gap, so they feel like they are part of something big. Barbara Wilson, who hosts CapFest here every year. She's actually a Northeast State rep, and she has what they call a Caribbean festival, right? At the festival, there is a food, there is a music, and there's a cultural part to it. So bring your children every year so they can start hearing the music, enjoying the food, and meeting others. So we have to do our part to make sure we create a space for our children, second, third, and fourth generation to be part of this, and make sure they're at the table. They always said that if you are not seated at the table, then you're part of the
Mm-hmm.
menu, which means you'll be eaten. So
Say that again. I like it. One more time. If what? Say it again.
this says that you must always make sure you're seated at the table, because if you're not seated at the table, you're part of the menu and you will be eaten.
Yes. Seated at the table, because if you're not, you're going to be a part of the menu. I really like that. I'm going to take a note of that. Hey, all
Okay.
right. No, here, so here's whenever you speak with Jamaicans, one will have a favorite parish or whatever. Who do you rep? What's your favorite? Let's find out.
Okay, so I am going to be impartial. I was born in Kingston, right?
Uh-huh.
So I am partial to Kingston. My mom is actually from Montego Bay. But Kingston is where it all happens, right? I enjoy Bob Marley, and so and the Bob Marley Museum is also in Kingston. So for the last 2 years, when I bring my church to Jamaica, I take them to Bob Marley Museum, and they just loved it. So I think the reggae music, the life, everything I feel like is in Kingston. They love Devon House, all the major political places and what takes place is done in Kingston. So, and I was brought up in Kingston, hence I love Kingston. But I know I can just hear my friends from all the other parishes saying exactly the opposite of Kingston, because it's a city, so you might want the countryside. But
Yeah.
that's all I know. So for me, I love it for what it brings, the culture, the heritage, where the political stuff takes place. It's all in Kingston. So that's why Kingston is my favorite.
It's all in Kingston. Yes, yes, yes. So, it was such a pleasure to have you and just, giving individuals, information and key things that they could, remember. And I hope that individuals can, take this and build in the diaspora and just help with your movement, right? Because I know you don't have an easy job. A lot is resting on you. I'm glad you work in a collaborative setting where you can, have others, you could reach out to. But how can someone contact you?
Okay, I can give you my telephone number and also email. So my telephone number is 215-620-6344. Again, 215-620-6344, or via email, and that's the number two, diaspora, diaspora, at gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so
My
much.
honor.
Yes, yes. And guys, I am here every Wednesday trying to keep consistent. So you are always welcome to come in and ask questions. This is an opportunity to get your voice heard. And if you're a powerhouse, right, and you want to, just like Michelle's here, giving her information, giving you wealth of information, and you want to be on this podcast, definitely reach out to me. You can send an email to info@NEV Alliance, right? Earlier I mentioned I'm having the International Women's Leadership Retreat, and that is going to be in Jamaica, hot sun fun paradise in September. So, guys, definitely reach out. Until next time, thank you so much for listening. And yeah, goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you again.